But before that, I would like to invite Mr. Kazuhiko TAKEMOTO, President of Overseas Environmental Cooperation Center, for keynote speech. He will look back on the history of cooperation between Japan and developing countries in the environmental management field, and based on the recent years' international trends toward circular economy and decarbonization, he will talk about the outlook for the future and expectations on JICA's international cooperation on the environment. Thank you very much for the introduction, and good morning or good afternoon to you. My name is TAKEMOTO. I'm the president of OECC. So, as was introduced earlier, at this kickoff international seminar for JCCI, let me talk a little bit about the Japan's experience in environmental management as well as the development of international cooperation, and also on JICA's Clean City Initiative and the direction for other international cooperation in this field based on my own experience too. Next slide, please. So, and this is the agenda. So I'm going to cover a wide range of issues. So I divided my speech into 3 parts. First, I will talk about Japan's experience and also the development of international cooperation in the field of the environment. Next, when you talk about the international cooperation, you also have to cover the regional and local environment and sustainable development to the global sustainable development and the environment. And there have been many changes occurring in the past, especially in developing countries. The voluntary and autonomous responses of those countries, or in other words, ownership, the developed countries and developing countries in partnership work together for local and global agenda. That is the second part. And thirdly and last, JICA's Clean Cities Initiative and the elements of that initiative, that is the JICA's international cooperation schemes and programs. And so I will talk more concretely about them. And lastly, I would like to talk about my expectations for the development of this JCCI initiative. Next slide, please. So from here, I will now talk about Japan's experience in environmental cooperation, and also, and as we see, this environmental agenda is being widely shared in the international community. So what is the development of international cooperation that we have experienced so far? First of all, in the field of the environment, the international cooperation in that field, into the 1980s, we began to earnestly work on the international cooperation in environment. Of course, it's starting with the infrastructure development, the waterworks, and the sewage network. And we already had experience in cooperating in that field, but from the perspective of the environmental management, how Japan should proceed with the international cooperation, that was the new issue that we faced from the 1980s. Then Mr. Michio Hashimoto, who was the professor of the Tsukuba University, was the leader in the Japanese mission to the formation of projects for Asian countries. And they went to Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia. And based on that result of that mission, Japan started working on the international cooperation in the environment. So that was a shift in the direction. And based on the cooperation with JICA, the staff from the Ministry of the Environment of Japan was dispatched to those three countries. First of all, to conduct the survey on the present situation, and starting with the capacity building and the monitoring program and the development of the research. And so the idea of building a center in each country was the first activity that we promoted. As you know, at JICA, in addition to the experts, there are project-based experts who conduct the feasibility study and the master planning, and so that is a scheme. But that would have to be developed further in order to create a project. And I myself was in charge of Malaysia in 1987. And in my case, I was dispatched for 3 months as a short-term expert, and then the second time for 1 month, a very short period of time. But I was able to do some monitoring in the communities in Malaysia. And also I conducted a training for human resources development, which will be based on Japan's experience. And I was asked to work on planning such a training program. And so this is the photo from that 35 years ago. This photo was taken, and that experience for me was very precious. And since then, and through working at the first Agency of the Environment and then Ministry of the Environment, I was particularly focusing my attention in the international cooperation. And from various positions, and I was able to be involved in international cooperation, which I think I was very lucky. And right now, I'm president of Overseas Environmental Cooperation Center. So it was this JICA schemes were very instrumental for me to develop my own personal career development. So in the initial stage, Japan's experiences in pollution, measures against pollutions and various other environmental issues. And the developing countries were, experiencing various environmental issues. So that's what we started in our cooperation, sharing Japan's experience. And so from 1989 to 91 or 92, the environmental issues in urban centers in Asia, especially the air pollution and the water issues, emerged. And the UNDP and the World Bank cooperated to tackle those issues. And they launched the Metropolitan Environment Improvement Program. And when it comes to Asia, Japan's experience might be very useful. So while I was with the Ministry of the Environment, there was this special study launched on Japan's experience in urban environmental management. And also the study looked into how those experiences can be shared with the Asian countries, to find out what kind of learnings the Asian countries can get from Japan's experience. So there was this special study, and the Professor Hashimoto once again was the chair of this steering committee. And what kind of responses were seen in different cities in Japan, Yokohama, Osaka, and Kitakyushu. And these 3 cases were taken as case studies and looked back on their histories and what went well and what worked and so forth. And so from the international community, Japan's experience was really gathered a lot of attention. And next slide, please. But on the other hand, when it comes to the environmental issues in the local communities, there was a very, grave situation. But into the 1990s, we also faced the global environmental issues. So the global environmental agenda, for example, the climate change and biological diversity, also the sustainable development, which was also discussed at the Rio Summit in 1992. So from these perspectives, how we should consider environmental issues and how are they related to the local communities or the economy. And these are the new agenda that the humanity faced. And international cooperation should also respond to these emerging issues. Next, please.
So I would like to move on to my next topic. And after the Rio Summit held in 1992, what were the changes and the developments and which happened? I'd like to discuss that topic. First, I'd like to introduce a concept of co-benefits, local issues and the health of local residents, and when there are challenges in that area. That means that from the viewpoint of the management of the people of the country's health, this challenge needs to be given the highest priority, obviously. On the other hand, climate changes and such global challenges did not feel to be closely related to the health of the local residents, but there was a link which was formed between the two, and by generating a co-benefits, benefiting both of the sides, by boosting the health of the local residents at the local level. At the same time, a global agenda such as climate change is to be addressed. That is the concept of co-benefits. At JICA as well, in collaboration with the Japanese government, the Cool Earth Partnership was launched to support developing countries. And in this context, this co-benefit approach was also integrated in that. And the international community as well. I believe that it was a COP16 conference held in Cancun, Mexico. In the COP conference then, each country defined the NAMA, nationally appropriate mitigation actions. And in this area, from NAMA's development, Japan, through the concept of co-benefits and through partnership, made a decision to promote Japan's cooperation with the development countries. And then this is about one of the examples of JICA's leaderships. In Delhi, India, metro system, subway system as a rapid transit system was introduced. And then it addressed, of course, the traffic congestion problem and also the air pollution. And from the viewpoint of the climate change, of course, it will help GHG emission reduction. So it was really a project which was based on the concept and approach of co-benefits as an JICA's leadership project. And then by introducing the latest brake systems in this metro transportation system, greater efficiency of energy supply was also be able to introduce. That was an extra effort and extra benefits. And that contributed to the CDM as adopted by the Kyoto Conference for Climate Change. So in this type of example, JICA's co-benefit approach and JICA's leadership in the international society attracted a lot of attention. And in more recent years, various global agenda became more and more diverse and active. So first, global norms were defined. In 2015, the SDGs were adopted by the United Nations, as you all know. And the Paris Agreement also was agreed upon. And then Paris Agreement was ratified by national governments and came into force. On the other hand, environmental-friendly infrastructures, international development was also a new movement which started then. Japan, in the year 2017, adopted a program of international development of environmentally friendly infrastructures overseas. And in 2019, based on that program, Japan's platform for that dissemination internationally was launched. And in individual countries, well, those countries perceived climate changes not only as a global and agenda and other people or other countries' agenda, but they took ownership of this particular agenda as a national agenda and challenge, and deemed it as an essential challenge to be addressed for their own national development. That was the positioning. And also adaptation and disaster risk reduction were combined for firm implementation of relevant programs. That was also a new approach which started then to address these challenges. And also COVID-19 pandemic started, and virtual or hybrid online meetings such as ours today now capitalizing on advanced technologies and to promote and implement environmentally friendly programs. And then climate change and disaster risk reduction are being addressed along with the COVID-19 countermeasures. So comprehensive approaches and then actions are more and more needed. In 2018 already, expecting this type of circumstances, and Ministry of Environment conducted various studies. And we can draw a lot of inspirations and lessons from them, such as participation of multiple stakeholders, institutional development as a challenge, and also public and private finance from both sources, public and private, and also scaling up as for success cases. Now that leads me to discuss this second topic, and there are more and more global agenda and global challenges, and at the same time for developing countries, and they are now in the era of taking more and more ownership to address them as their own challenges. I'd like to share with you some case studies in this context. This utilized the JICA scheme in Indonesia, that is a waste-to-energy project in Indonesia. What was very important back then was that not only a public funding, but also finance from private sources were mobilized, and in preparation of that, experts were dispatched to Indonesia. And then those experts collaborated with the local members to implement this waste-to-energy project to address climate change issues, and also by introducing private fundings from local business communities. And the Ministry of Environment of Japan and the International Finance Corporation also were involved by promoting this project through collaboration. And next case, this one is in Vietnam. The name of the scheme was JCM. the initiative was taken together with these developing countries to address the climate change issues. In Vietnam, stabilization of electricity power supply and the reduction of loss of electricity during transportation were issues. So the high voltage transformers in substations was the goal of this project. As you can see from the first project implementation phase through the fourth one, the project was implemented in different stages along with the Vietnamese partners and to cover the whole nation eventually, and to also to transfer that same technology to the neighboring country Laos. So this triggered development and further development of this program from a national level to an international level. Next, please. Mr. Ono from the Ministry of Environment already mentioned this. This is about the Japan's platform for redesign for sustainable infrastructure called JPRSI. And particularly business companies become partners in overseas countries to partner with the local business corporations to improve local environment, at the same time addressing a global climate agenda. In those local communities, air pollution and water pollution were the challenges, and also climate change mitigation needed to be addressed. And what are the interests of the area at the local level? What are the local needs? Those were the viewpoints which were involved in discussion to have a discussions on various topics such as the policy discussions, and then implement the measures at the local level.
Already, more than 400 organizations and companies are participating in this platform. Next, the response to wastes. So we now see some developments in this area too. So I'm going to talk about that. 3R initiative, as you already know, so reduce, recycle, and reuse wastes. And this is a concept of 3R. At G8 Summit, Japan made a proposal, and based on that, G8 Ministerial Conference in 2005 was held. So 3R initiative was proposed by Japan in the international community, and Japan has been the promoter of this concept. And what are the issues? As you can see at the bottom of the slide, sustainable consumption and production, and resource efficiency, and more recently, circular economy. And so this will 3R initiative will lead to all these. And Japan was one of the first ones to adopt such a concept. And in the future, we would like to disseminate this to Asia. As you can see, with the cooperation from the international organizations and various stakeholders and academic stakeholders, starting with the policy dialogue to a wide variety of layers. We would like to promote this in Asia-Pacific. And this Asia-Pacific 3R Forum has been going on since 2009, and we have been holding an annual forum. But on the other hand, as you see on the right-hand side, there is a Basel Convention and also the SDGs and circular economy. And so all these will lead to circular economy. So 3R initiatives, Asia-Pacific Forum, is now working with the Circular Economy Forum. So now it's called the Asia-Pacific 3R and Circular Economy Forum. So there is this major development in this field too. And this we we also heard from Mr. Yamada from JICA and as well as Mr. Ono from the Ministry of the Environment that there was this G20 Osaka summit, and there was a major step which was taken at the summit. Osaka Blue Ocean Vision was adopted. As Mr. Ono said, many countries have supported this vision, and now we are seeing more countries supporting this. And in the future, this will develop into a certain framework. And this is a global issue. And developed countries and developing countries have to work together to solve this very important issue. So this marine initiative has been proposed by Japan, and government is promoting this together with JICA. So this issue of waste, we now see various major developments, international trends occurring. And next is about co-innovation, especially towards a decarbonized society. There has been accelerated moves in different parts of the world. As you know, at COP26 last year, the global objective was set to control the temperature rise at 1.5 degrees as compared to the from the time of the industrialization. And Japan, international community, including developed countries and developing countries, these countries all have made commitment towards decarbonization to realize in 2050 or maybe a little bit later to achieve the net zero emissions and the carbon neutrality. And this commitment was expressed at COP26, and we also see some major moves even after COP. And what's important is that the developing countries included, many countries think that this is an issue that they have to address, and this is very important. So, especially this support to international support to developing countries through JICA and other agencies. This is very important. And first of all, response to international decisions and standards is very important. And of course, the support from developed countries is important, but the developing countries have to take on this challenge as their own issue, and what kind of projects and programs should be implemented in order to realize that. And to do that, the public and private finances are needed. And in order to promote this as a country, the human resources need to be developed. That's very important. So there are multi-layers in cooperation. And of course, you cannot do everything at once, but these have to be conducted in an integrated manner. And the JICA has been spearheading the efforts to support these efforts in developing countries. And Japan's decarbonization initiative through JCM, Japan will continue to work on this to promote renewable energy and the green logistics and also waste infrastructure development. And these are the major elements. Recently, Japan has decided to further enhance these initiatives. Next, please. Next, I'm going to talk about the third last topic. JICA has various schemes, and by fully utilizing these schemes, we would like to promote international cooperation in this field. And I'm sure you know a lot of things in this field, but let me share with you some specific examples. First of all, on technical cooperation, in promoting technical cooperation, Japan's experience in various fields will be useful. And based on that, the experts visit the local communities. And in the upstream, policy development and the planning the master plan, in a way, the ground designing. But Japan will not just tell the developing countries what to do, but rather Japan would like to grasp the needs of the developing country in a precise manner so that we can provide the support. And in implementing such a plan, what kind of techniques and the technologies are needed. And that perspective is very important. On the right-hand side, you will see the photos of some pamphlets and booklets and also a photo. This photo is from Vietnam, and this is the JICA's program, SPI NAMA it's called. And this program has been going on for some time now. So in order to respond to climate change, what kind of technologies need to be deployed in local communities? So it's about the technical guideline and not just developing such a guideline, but to make sure that such a guideline will be beneficial to local people. And so that is this program in Vietnam. And NDC, Nationally Determined Contribution. So this kind of activity is now contributing to developing the Vietnam's NDC. Next is the ODA loan. So utilizing ODA loan as a driving force on the right-hand side, this is a wind power farm in Mongolia and also the geothermal power plant in Indonesia, both responding to climate change. So through such programs, Japan's ODA loan is utilized. But also that will be coupled with the private sector investment finance. And JICA will provide a support to this. And the insurance assurance in the overseas markets will be given. That means that the value of this project is assured in the overseas market. That will then contribute to attracting more private sector investment. Next is very important, human resources development. In various programs, we invite those people to Japan so that they can learn. And we also send our experts to local countries. This is going to be a major source of power in the future to support the infrastructure. And JICA has a long-standing history in this area. And so through utilizing JICA's program, various experts were developed. And now they are quite active in different fields in different countries. And we also are nurturing young generation through this program. So JICA's program is also very important in this sense too. So next slide, please.
This is an example in Vietnam. And right after my presentation, there will be a Vietnam session. So I'd like to be brief, but I'd like to give you the outline. It was in July of 2004, and it was decided to firmly implement environmental programs in Vietnam. And in order to kick off that process, the initial mission was created by JICA and visited Vietnam. I was part of that mission as one of the members. The leader of this mission was Mr. Kawakami, former president of JICA. Ambassador Kawakami was the leader of this mission. And it was only for 1 week duration. The time was very limited, but we visited the various locations in Vietnam, and it was decided that both countries, Japan and Vietnam, would be firmly implementing environmental programs, and that was the kickoff to build the capacity with an ownership and own efforts made by Vietnam to address the global agenda of climate change as well. And then recently, Vietnam made its commitment to 2050 carbon neutrality as well. And then, as Mr. Ono from the Ministry of Environment discussed earlier today, through policy dialogues, last year in 2021, the minister of two countries decided for a joint cooperation plan on climate change toward carbon neutrality. And then this is a structural view of different programs between Vietnam and Japan about the environment and climate change. And from this viewpoint of cities, comprehensive cooperation in urban environment covering all these wide range of areas, and JICA's programs and projects are contributing to them. Further details, I believe, will be discussed in the next session focusing on Vietnam. Last but not least, I'd like to say a few words about the JCCI, JICA Clean City Initiative. Mr. Yamada, the Executive Senior Vice President of JICA, mentioned this in his opening remarks today. JICA has various different types of schemes and has a track record that I mentioned in my presentation. What matters is to accurately identify local needs with the knowledge and experiences and expertise of JICA, along with ideas generated at the local level, are put together to trigger innovations. So this is the way the partnership is formed, and that is going to be implemented properly in this framework of JICA Clean City Initiative. So JCCI as a framework has been introduced as such, and I am sure that JCCI will be more and more focused and attracting a lot of attention at the international level going forward, and there will be a lot of mobilization of Japanese and international resources, and which will be essential for the success of this initiative. And this is my last slide. I would like to summarize my presentation. Firstly, Japan has had various experiences, and then through them, Japan has been contributing to realize support and to start through JICA's activities to collaboration on an equal footing as of today with developing countries. And secondly, in developing countries as well, commitment to address the local challenges was obvious, but they are now more and more committed to global agenda. So there is a lot of boosted ownerships in developing countries. They are increasing in number. In this context, going forward, we should not really call them as developing countries anymore, but should call them rather as a partner countries to collaborate with them on an equal footing. And JCCI, JICA's Clean City Initiative, will be a main slogan and a banner going forward. But not only that, JCCI will be serving as an integrating framework so that the various comprehensive programs led by JICA will be worked upon together with JICA's partner countries. So I have high expectation for that, and then as a person, on my personal note, as an individual who has been involved in various undertakings of JICA, I would be really happy to be part of those upcoming initiatives and implementations. So thank you very much. This concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for your kind attention.